The distant stars shimmered like the fading remnants of a forgotten dream, their light now too weak to pierce the thick, unnatural blackness that enveloped the galaxy. The United Galactic Coalition, once a shining beacon of unity and hope, now stood on the brink of annihilation. Against the relentless tide of the Xantari Empire, humanity was losing its grip on the stars they once called home. Commander Tessa Calloway stood in the command center of the vanguard, her eyes fixed on the holographic display before her. The screen showed the Xantari fleet, massive, dark ships that seemed to devour light itself, pressing forward relentlessly. Their ships, far superior to anything the Coalition could muster, outclassed humanity's defenses in every conceivable way. "Status report," Tessa demanded, her voice cold, but laced with the ever-present tension of command. Lieutenant Oren, stationed at the tactical console, turned to face her, his brow furrowed in concern. "The Xantari have launched another wave. They've breached the outer defenses of Alpha Centauri and are heading for the inner colonies. We've lost contact with the Fifth Fleet. The survivors from the last engagement are scattered, and we have no reinforcements left." Tessa clenched her jaw, her fists gripping the edge of the console in frustration. Alpha Centauri, the first human colony to ever be established outside Earth's solar system, was now in flames, its once thriving cities reduced to smoldering ruins. The thought of losing it to the Xantari, a species known for their brutal conquests, sent a cold shiver down her spine. "How long until they reach Earth?" she asked, trying to suppress the rising fear that threatened to cloud her judgment. Oren hesitated. "At this rate, within the week. If we can't stop them, Earth will fall within days." The room was silent. Every officer in the room knew what that meant. Earth was the heart of humanity's legacy, the birthplace of the Coalition, and the last hope for the survival of the human race. If it fell, humanity's dream of peace across the stars would die along with it. "Do we have any more options?" Tessa's voice was strained. She turned to face her team, her eyes scanning each officer in the room, desperate for a solution. But they all looked back at her with the same hopeless expression. "We've exhausted every option, Commander," said Commander Ivana Reyes, a seasoned strategist who had fought in countless wars. "We can't match their firepower. We can't outrun them. The Xantari Empire, they've been at this for centuries. We're the last species standing in their way." Tessa's mind raced. The Xantari were a ruthless species, capable of turning entire planets to ash with the flick of a switch. They'd decimated countless civilizations before humanity. Their tactics were precise, their technology unmatched, and their thirst for conquest unrelenting. But Tessa wasn't ready to give up. She refused to believe that this was the end of humanity. She had led her people through the most devastating of battles, and she would do so again. She straightened, a glimmer of defiance burning in her eyes. "Then we make our stand," she said firmly, her voice steady and commanding. "We will fight until the last ship falls. We will make them bleed." Her officers exchanged uncertain glances, but none dared to voice their doubts aloud. Tessa had always been their leader, their rock in the storm. If anyone could turn the tide, it was her. But deep inside she knew she couldn't do it alone. The Xantari were too powerful, and their strategy too flawless. Humanity's tactics, while fierce, had never been enough. The odds were simply too great. Then, a voice broke through the silence. "We may not have to face them alone," came a voice from the far end of the command room. Tessa's eyes snapped to the newcomer, who had just entered the room. His presence immediately commanded attention. The man was tall, with a sharp jawline and piercing eyes that held a quiet intensity. His name was Axel Kor, an emissary from the ancient and enigmatic species known as the Litari. "Commander Calloway," Axel said, his voice calm but filled with urgency. "I have come with an offer." Tessa raised an eyebrow, skeptical. The Litari were mysterious, known for their advanced technology and their unwillingness to intervene in the conflicts of other species. For them to offer assistance now, it was unprecedented. "What offer?" she asked, her tone cautious. Axel's gaze met hers, unwavering. "We have fought the Xantari before. We know their weaknesses. And we are willing to lend you our strength. Tessa frowned. And why would you do that? The Litari are known for staying neutral. Why help us now, when everything seems lost? Axel's expression softened, but there was no mistaking the resolve in his eyes. The Xantari have gone too far. We may have kept our distance, but we will not sit idle while they extinguish another species. You are the last bastion of resistance. Your survival means something. If you fall, the Xantari will be unstoppable. Tessa felt a spark of hope ignite within her. The Litari had never offered help to any species before, not even when their own worlds had been ravaged. For them to offer now, in humanity's darkest hour, meant that they were serious. What do you need from us? Tessa asked, her voice laced with both curiosity and cautious optimism. Axel stepped forward, his eyes burning with an intensity that matched Tessa's own. We have something the Xantari fear, a weapon they have never encountered. A force that, when wielded by humans, will be unstoppable. Tessa's heart skipped a beat. What weapon? Axel paused, the weight of his words hanging in the air. You must call upon the one species, the one that the Xantari have always feared. Tessa's brow furrowed in confusion. What species? We've never heard of them. Axel's gaze was steady, unwavering. You will. In time you will learn. But first, you must make the decision. Will you trust us? Tessa's mind raced. The decision was monumental, but as she stared at the holographic projection of Earth's fate, she knew there was no choice. If humanity was to survive, they had to take this gamble. I trust you, she said, her voice steady and resolute. We'll do whatever it takes. Tell us how to call upon them. Axel nodded. Then prepare yourselves. The war is about to take a turn. And when the one species arrives, the Xantari will know fear like they've never known before. And so, in the darkest hour of humanity's existence, a new hope was born. A hope that would rise from the ashes of defeat, wielding a power that could change the course of the galaxy itself. Tessa paced back and forth in the Vanguard's war room, her fingers tapping restlessly on the edge of the table. Axel had left them with more questions than answers, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead gnawed at her. The mention of the one species had done little to settle her nerves. The Xantari had ravaged countless civilizations, and they were feared across the galaxy. But to face them, humanity had to rely on something, or someone, unknown. Orin sat at the communications console, his face bathed in the soft blue light of the data stream. Commander, he said without turning, we've detected another wave of Xantari ships heading straight for Earth. They're closing fast. Tessa halted mid-step, her heart racing. Every second that passed brought them closer to a war that they might not survive. She turned sharply toward him. How long until they reach our atmosphere? Orin's fingers danced across the controls, pulling up a series of numerical data and vectors. His face went pale as he read the figures. At their current speed, 6 hours. 6 hours. The timeline had never been so tight. Earth, the cradle of humanity, was on the verge of being lost. Tessa knew that humanity's best chance lay in the Lithari's offer, but the thought of summoning an unknown species, one that might not even show up, was terrifying. Suddenly, the door to the war room slid open. Axel entered, his expression as calm as ever. But there was a slight tension around his eyes, an undercurrent of urgency that matched Tessa's own anxiety. He nodded in greeting to her, then turned toward the holographic map projecting above the center of the room. The Xantari fleet loomed, a dark cloud against the backdrop of the stars. They're almost here, Tessa said, her voice tight with apprehension. Axel studied the map for a moment before speaking. We don't have much time. The one species will only respond to your call if they believe it's the right moment, if they feel you are worthy. Worthy? Tessa echoed, incredulous. How do we make them believe that? We don't even know who or what they are. Axel's lips twitched, but he remained composed. The one species is ancient, far older than the Xantari, and their power is beyond anything you've ever encountered. They don't respond to force. They respond to something more, intrinsic. They respond to the will of a species, a species that proves it is capable of standing against impossible odds. Tessa's frustration flared. We've already done that. We're standing against impossible odds now. We've fought tooth and nail for every inch of ground, and we're still losing. Axel's eyes softened slightly. You misunderstand. The one species does not come to save you because you fight. They come because you deserve to survive. They recognize strength and unity, in courage, qualities that are intrinsic to your kind, not just your ability to fight. The room fell silent as Tessa absorbed his words. The weight of what he was asking her to do loomed large, but there was no time to dwell on it. She couldn't afford to doubt now. What exactly do we need to do? She asked, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. Axel's expression hardened. You must call them. You must show them that humanity is not a species to be wiped out, that your will to survive is stronger than any adversary, even the Xantari. How do I call them? Tessa demanded. How do we make this plea? Axel walked toward the console, pulling up a map of Earth. He hovered his hand over the blue sphere, and the room grew still. There are specific coordinates on your planet, places where the connection to the one species is strongest. The energy they harness is subtle, almost imperceptible to most, but they can feel it when it is used. Coordinates? Energy? Tessa repeated, trying to keep up with his explanation. What kind of energy are we talking about? Not the kind you're used to. It's more than just physical power. It's the energy of belief, of hope, of unity. A force that transcends conventional understanding. If you can tap into this energy, it will resonate with the one species. They will hear it. Tessa stood frozen, the implications of Axel's words slowly sinking in. To summon the one species, she had to tap into something within humanity, a collective energy, an unyielding force that could pierce the very fabric of the galaxy. It wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a call for humanity's very soul. Where do we begin? Tessa asked, her voice quiet but filled with resolve. Axel's gaze locked onto hers, the intensity of his eyes both comforting and unsettling. At the heart of your people. The energy you seek is strongest in the places where humanity has always gathered, where the bonds between your kind are most tightly woven. Your cities, your monuments to human perseverance. But we're fighting a war, Tessa said, her brow furrowed. How are we supposed to gather that energy when we're on the brink of destruction? Axel nodded, as though he understood her frustration. You must show them the unity you've always had, even in the face of despair. Find the places that have witnessed humanity's greatest triumphs. The places where your kind has stood together, defied the odds, and thrived. That is where the one species will listen. Tessa thought about Earth, the last refuge of humanity, with its cities still standing, despite the devastation wrought by the Xantari. The thought of tapping into the collective spirit of humanity filled her with both hope and dread. Could they really rise above their fear and despair? Axel's voice broke through her thoughts. Time is running out. You must act quickly. Tessa took a deep breath. Then we'll make our stand where it counts. We'll call them. As the crew of the Vanguard prepared to move into position, Tessa stood by the viewports, staring out into the cold, endless void of space. The Xantari fleet was just a speck now, but its shadow loomed large over everything. She knew they were about to gamble everything. And yet, there was a part of her, small, but growing stronger, that believed the one species would hear humanity's call. They had no choice but to try. And if they were going to fail, they would do it on their own terms. Let's do this, she whispered to herself, a spark of determination igniting within her. As the Vanguard hurtled toward Earth, Tessa prepared to unleash humanity's greatest hope, knowing that whatever happened next would shape the future of their species. The descent toward Earth was swift, the Vanguard cutting through the atmosphere with a force that rattled the entire ship. Tessa stood at the command console, staring out at the swirling blue and white of her home planet. Earth, the birthplace of humanity, now seemed both familiar and impossibly distant. She could almost feel the pulse of the planet beneath her feet, a heartbeat that was shared by every person in the world. It was a feeling that sparked something deep within her, a hope, fragile but strong, that maybe, just maybe, they could still turn the tide. Orin's voice broke through her thoughts. "We've reached the coordinates, Commander." Tessa's fingers hovered over the console, her gaze unwavering. Axel had explained what they needed to do, but his words hadn't made the task any less daunting. The energy they needed to tap into was not something that could be measured in traditional terms. It wasn't a weapon that could be aimed or fired. It was something that had to be felt, something woven into the very fabric of humanity itself. "Proceed," Tessa ordered. "Initiate the signal." The ship hummed as the systems activated, and a soft glow began to pulse from the central core. The hum filled the command center, growing louder with every passing second. Tessa could feel the vibration deep in her chest. It wasn't just the ship. It was the energy, humanity's collective will to survive, to endure, to fight back. Orin looked up from his console, his eyes wide. "Commander, the energy levels are stabilizing." It's working," Axel interjected, his voice calm yet tinged with urgency. "Now you must focus. Call out to them. Let them know you're ready to stand." Tessa's hand tightened around the edge of the console. She had spent her entire life as a soldier, commanding fleets, executing strategies, leading her people in battle. But this was different. She was no longer commanding a ship or a fleet. She was reaching out to something far greater. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She let the weight of everything, the lives lost, the destruction of Alpha Centauri, the impending fall of Earth, fill her. Then she spoke, not as a commander, but as a representative of all humanity. "We are the children of Earth. We have fought, and we have bled. We have faced the darkness, and we stand here, defiant. We do not seek death. We seek life. We seek a future for our children, our legacy, and for every soul that calls this planet home." Her voice echoed in the room, amplified by the ship's systems. But it wasn't just the words. It was the sincerity, the desperation, and the collective strength of every person on Earth that poured into her voice. Tessa felt it, the power of humanity's will, raw and unyielding. "We are ready to stand with you," she continued, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. "Help us. Show us the way." The room was silent for a moment, the hum of the ship the only sound that remained. Then, without warning, a shift. It was subtle, at first. A tremor in the air. A crackle of static in the communications systems. Orin's voice broke the silence. "Commander, there's something happening. The Xantari fleet, they're retreating." Tessa's eyes snapped to the display. The once advancing Xantari ships, large and menacing, were now faltering. Their movements were erratic, as if they were unsure of what was happening. The Xantari, a race known for their precision and ruthless tactics, were being thrown into disarray. Axel stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "The one species has responded. They are awakening." Tessa's heart pounded in her chest. Are they coming?" Axel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned to face the viewports, his gaze fixed on the swirling chaos of the Xantari fleet. It was then that Tessa saw it, a shift in the stars. A distant point of light, a glimmer of something far more powerful than the Xantari could ever comprehend. "We are not alone," Axel said, his voice filled with awe. "They have arrived." The sky outside the Vanguard seemed to split open, and from the depths of space, a massive ship emerged. It was unlike anything Tessa had ever seen, its form fluid, almost organic in nature, with an ethereal glow that seemed to emanate from within. The vessel dwarfed even the largest of the Xantari ships, its sheer presence causing a ripple through the fabric of space itself. "That's them?" Tessa whispered, her voice barely audible. "They are," Axel confirmed. "The one species." Tessa's eyes widened as the ship moved into position between the Vanguard and the Xantari fleet. It wasn't just a ship, it was a living force, a manifestation of power and ancient energy. The Xantari, once so sure of their dominance, were now being pushed back, their fleet scattering in every direction. The massive ship's form shimmered as it released a wave of energy, silent but overwhelming. The Xantari ships were immediately caught in the wave, their advanced technology useless against the raw power emanating from the one species. The Xantari fleet started to disintegrate, their massive warships crumbling into nothingness, consumed by the force of the energy. It was as though the very essence of the Xantari was being undone, eroded by something far older, far more powerful. Tessa could hardly believe her eyes. The Xantari, conquerors of countless worlds, were being repelled by something they had never encountered, something they could not fight. "We have a chance," Orin said, his voice filled with wonder. Axel's voice, though, was somber. "This is just the beginning. The one species will drive the Xantari back, but the war is far from over. You must use this opportunity wisely." Tessa nodded, still in awe of the destruction unfolding before her. "What do we do now?" "You must lead your people through the aftermath," Axel replied. "The one species has given you a chance. But the real fight is still ahead." As the one species continued to dismantle the Xantari fleet, Tessa's mind raced. Earth had been given a reprieve, but that was all. The real battle would come when the Xantari regrouped, and when they returned, they would remember this moment. But for now, they had won. And that was enough. Tessa turned toward her crew, her face resolute. "Prepare for the next phase. We've been given a gift. It's time to take our future back." And as the one species ship hovered in the distance, a beacon of light in the vastness of space, Tessa knew that humanity's fight was just beginning. But now, they were no longer alone.